Good evening, everybody. I mean, that's weird to say. Good evening. Because we haven't done an evening podcast before. So, what's going on, everybody? I'm your host, James the Patriot. Welcome to another edition of the Justice Revolution. I have with me my ever so faithful co-host, Justice. Say hello, Justice.
Hey everyone, how are you tonight?
Our other co-host, Erica, will be joining us hopefully soon. She had a couple of things to attend to. I have to laugh here real quick because I'm going to put this up on the screen. Rick M says, "I'm going to bed. I'll catch the replayer podcast." Thanks, Rick. I appreciate you for being here. No, I agree. I have to apologize, everyone. It has been close to 3 weeks since we've done our last episode, and I'm terribly sorry that I haven't gotten another episode out. A lot of things have been going on. As you guys know, I started a new job back in September. It's pretty crazy. Keeps me really busy. So there's that side of it. The other side of it, I think I told you, my wife and I, we are in the middle of building a new house. That's been crazy. Obviously, the closer we get to being finished, the crazier things happen. So all of that jazz. So for those of you who are joining us this late evening, I know it's 9 p.m. on the East Coast right now and 6 p.m. on the West Coast. Thank you guys for being here. For the rest of you who are maybe listening on a podcast or watching later, thanks again for tuning into the show. So we really appreciate your support, your love. Just thank you. That's just really just what I wanted to say. Is thank you. So, but a lot has happened. A lot has happened since we last spoke, Justice. So, Justice, what's new in your world? Let's take the whole Telegram world and set that aside for a minute. But what's new in your world?
Just looking forward to the spring. It's
Yeah.
On to
You
new
still
ventures.
have quite a bit of snow, or is it melting or melted?
Snowed again today.
Yeah.
So we live at 7,000 feet. So when you get down to about 6,000 or 5,000, snow turns to rain. So we get a little bit every time you're getting rain, we're getting snow usually. But
yeah, it's been a wet February. And it hasn't been a lot of snow. It's been a lot of rain is what I've seen, at least where I'm at. I live at about 4,500 feet. So
yeah.
4,200 feet, something like that. So I'm not up in the mountains like Justice and her family are. So,
Yeah.
what else? Anything new?
I'm praying. I think that the world seems like it's getting real angry right now.
Oh, jeez.
People are at each other's throats. So I'm trying to work on being kind and graceful and understanding and understand that the enemy is trying to make the world hate one another. So it's kind of where my head's been this month, is just take deep breaths, extend grace, and the world needs more love. So
Isn't that the truth, right?
and then I stepped into Telegram this week and went, wow,
Oh.
I'm not so far off. But anyway.
Well, we're going to get to that. Gosh, and that's part of the reason why the title of the show today is Affidavits. Are they useful anymore? So for those of you who are watching us live or those of you who are here in the chat, just drop us a little message and let us know if you saw the fireworks, because that's really what it was. There was a massive fireworks show this week that took place in our chat. Now, mind you, here's what's kind of hilarious about all of this. Neither Justice nor myself instigated this or started any of it. We were both kind of, like we said, wrapped up in our lives. I mean, Justice was busy with her family and her daughter and their horses, and I was busy with my family and traveling with work and obviously the other things we have going on. But yeah, Leslie Liberty says, yeah, it was overwhelming. So I don't want to rehash or reopen any old wounds there that may have come as a result of what happened. But the long and short of it is we had two very strong-willed personality individuals who decided to go head to head over notices and affidavits and things like that. And I believe they took it to some type of a live show, Rumble or something like that. I heard I didn't get a chance to watch it, or I tuned in for a few minutes and then I got busy with other things. And honestly, I didn't have the time to sit there and listen to people argue back and forth. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not here to say who's right and who's wrong, because that's not my place. Um, that's not how I live my life. And that's not why I do what I do. That's not why we do this show. We don't do this show to say, well, this is absolutely 100% right and this is
Right,
absolutely 100% wrong. And if you do this, you're screwed. And if you don't do this, you're an idiot. That's not how that's not how I am. I'll never be like that, in fact.
right.
So, um, Lael Jones says, I'm new here, so I don't know anything about the fireworks. Good. We're just going to keep it that way.
Well,
um,
we believe in free speech, and
exactly.
we allowed them as adults to try to work it out with everybody. But when it started to become two teams attacking one another, and we just said, that's the end of it. I asked all parties and anybody listening, if you have proof documentation of your pro se actions in court, or someone that you can send documentation, case numbers, and
Hmm.
outcomes, and based on what, please send it over to us or get in
Yeah.
Telegram. I'm going to try and compile it all so that people with problems with custody, or people with problems with traffic, people with problems with mortgages, that we can say, Alphonse is good at this, Big Sib is good at this, and just point people in the right direction. And so that's basically the last thing that I asked for.
Yeah.
And just show
Yeah.
us the proof, stop the arguing, and then we just had to put.
Stop the name calling, stop the
Yeah,
belittling, stop
yeah.
the, well, your mama this and your mama that. I mean, I don't know if they said that. I'm just, you know what I
No,
mean?
but in so
This is
many
like this
words.
this is like the school kid talk back and forth on the playground. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like. But at at the end of the day, you guys, here's what's going on. Okay. The title of the show um is Affidavits. Are they useful anymore? And the short answer to that question is yes. So, VP, I wonder if this is Vartui. I'm assuming it is. So what if it's out of court, right? Because that's really what the contention was. As I understand it, again, I wasn't part of the show they did, or the debate that they put on. I wasn't part of that. I didn't want to be a part of that. But from my understanding, it was one side was, if I send you an affidavit and you don't rebut it, it's gospel truth, and now I can take that and I can go get a judgment against you. The other side was, well, you send me an affidavit and I use it as toilet paper. What are you going to do to get a judgment against me? That's I believe that's what it came down to.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's
Yes, I'm happy to have any evidence as long as it's evidence and not hearsay. I don't take verbal testimonials because they're just hearsay, because anything you do, you get an action for it. So if
yeah.
someone's coming after you and you stop it somehow, there has to be a letter, even if it's a personal letter with your neighbor saying, let's settle it this way. Then you've
Hmm.
done it in honor with a
Exactly.
human being, and you didn't have, that's fine, but there has to be a paper trail. Otherwise, we're really silly if we're going to try to stop a legality and not have any kind of proof. That's why you could write a will, but it has to
Hmm.
be penned in ink, and you could write
Yeah.
it and stick it in your drawer and it's valid. But
There's any number
there's
of
no proof. If you
scenarios here.
signed an NDA, there's no proof. So,
Exactly. So
there has to be proof.
well, before we answer the question of, are affidavits useful anymore? Do they serve a purpose in court or outside of court? Before we answer that question, we need to have a basic understanding of, where did they come from to begin with? What are they? Um, what what's the purpose? What was the purpose? What was the purpose as our founders knew it and understood it? And all of those things. So I want to take us back to the basic principles, which I think everybody can agree on. And that's where I was hoping that when this debate, if that's what we want to call it, when these gentlemen just started to debate with each other, I had hoped that they would have found some form of common ground that they could all agree on. I didn't hear that. I didn't see that. And again, I'm not here to sit here and say one side was right over the other. That's not my place, and that's not what I want to do. The purpose that I want to get across, the point I want to get across, is we have to have a firm understanding of the foundational principles that this nation was founded upon. So we need to go back 250 something years, put ourselves in the minds of the founding fathers. What did they know then? What was their understanding of certain words and meanings? And does it make sense the way that they saw it? And does it make sense for the way it is today? Does that make sense at all? What I'm saying there, Justice?
Yeah.
Or am I just
It's
rambling at this
well,
point?
things have been skewed and usurped, and
Mhm.
this is what we found out over the last 6 or 7 years here. And and there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say, which is a horrible figure of speech. But if you get remedy with an affidavit in a certain way and someone else gets it in another way, then they both work to some degree and to some extent.
Exactly.
Oftentimes a threat is enough to get your remedy out of court. Threat of
Exactly.
Right. So sometimes notices and affidavits work, and not have to be attached to a lawsuit, which is, I think, what one side was trying to say. Another side was saying, well, what if I throw it away? Well, then that's the next step, right? But sometimes you don't have, it doesn't have to get that far. But things
Yeah.
have changed. Things have
Yeah.
been usurped, and we have to go back to the beginning, to the basics, to what is penned in ink, and
Mhm.
stick by that. So
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go back to what is and what was an affidavit as the founders of our nation knew it. Because you have to understand that the purpose of an affidavit, it came from the English common law. And the English common law came about from the Magna Carta in 1215. It was basically the peasants rose up. They were sick and tired of the king's tyranny, and they said, "King, you're not going to treat us like this anymore. We are human beings. We have rights that are given to us by God, not from you. Our rights don't come from another man." And so they forced the king to sign this, the Magna Carta, which guaranteed all of the subjects of England a certain number of rights that the king could not infringe on. Fast forward to the 1600s, 1700s, which is when the founding fathers were together and they came over here to the United States. Well, before then, it was just the colonies. Now they're trying to put down on paper this great experiment of self-governance. So they had to we have to have an understanding of what did they know and what did they believe an affidavit was. Well, Black's Law Dictionary has been around for hundreds of years, hundreds. I think there's now 11 different editions, maybe more. I could be wrong. But we know for a fact that the second edition was available. And I know that it was either James Madison or one of the others, one of the other founding fathers had a copy of it. And it was crucial when they were drafting the Declaration of Independence, when they were drafting um, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So, from Black's Law Dictionary, second edition, this is what a definition of an affidavit is. It says it is a written or printed declaration or statement of facts made voluntarily and confirmed by the oath or affirmation of the party making it, taken before an officer having authority to administer such oath. So, where do we see that phrase, oath or affirmation? Where have you seen that phrase before, Justice?
oh, I'm sorry, I was answering somebody. Sorry.
You're okay. So
Go ahead.
sometimes there is a specific
Without
constitution.
Erica here, it's half
Yeah,
good. Okay, because I'm
yeah,
always
yeah,
doing
yeah.
introductions. Sorry, sorry,
So
guys.
I'm thinking there's a constitutional amendment that states that no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. That's the Fourth Amendment. Okay. So the Fourth Amendment states that. So the founding fathers knew and understood that. But here's what's interesting, you guys. This is Black's Law Dictionary, second edition. We read on. It says an affidavit is a written declaration under oath made without notice to the adverse party. So wait a minute. An affidavit is made without notice to the adverse party. So what does that mean exactly?
Made
What are we
without
what are we to take
notice.
from that, Justice?
Well, adverse would be the opposing, I would assume,
Hmm.
and made without notice, you can make it and file it anywhere you want, I would
That's
assume.
exactly right. So we have seen, okay, going back to the foundational principles that our nation was founded upon, our founding fathers, because of the tyranny of King George, they said no more. We are not going to let our good subjects be thrown into prison without an opportunity to defend themselves, without an opportunity to put into the record the facts and truth as they know it. So Leslie brings up a good point. An adverse party has no opportunity to rebut. So here's my question, okay? And you're spot on, Leslie. Thank you for bringing that in. Here's my question, Justice. Let's say, for example, I send you an affidavit saying that you harmed me and you did this and you did that. And then let's say that you rebut my affidavit and you send me one back. So now we're at odds. Now what? Now what? And I file suit against you. But I fail to tell the court that you rebutted my affidavit. And I go to the court and I try to get a default judgment against you, or I say, hey, we've already settled this matter. This court just needs to put their stamp of approval on it. What then?
I don't know, because if the court doesn't have record of a rebuttal, you'd be held liable, I would believe.
Exactly. But guess what? You come into the court and say, whoa, 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 hold on, Judge. I actually did rebut this. This man is trying to purport fraud upon the court.
Right.
Hey, there she is.
Hey guys, I made it.
Yay!
I was really excited to be able to come through on my promise to show up with the hobo lady from the grocery store a couple weeks ago, where that lady gave me $60 because
Wow, that's
she
so
looked at
nice.
me and she thought, oh wow, you're really struggling. Well, this is what I look like most of the time. I'm running around doing things for my survival.
So we were just talking about getting back to the basic understanding of what did the founders know and understand what the definition of an affidavit was to them and what it is today. And then also we're going to talk a little bit more on when an affidavit is used, how does one gain remedy for that? So I just brought up the theory, the question that I submit an affidavit to Justice because she did something, she wronged me. Justice rebuts my affidavit, but then I go ahead and file suit against Justice, and I just failed to tell the court that my affidavit was rebutted. And now I'm trying to go and move the court to get judgment for me. So my question is, what happens when Justice comes into the court and says, whoa, 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 hold on a minute. I rebutted the affidavit. It's right here. Now what happens? What do we do then? What's my remedy? Do I have a remedy?
Oh, are you asking me, or is this?
I'm asking the both of you. I'm asking both of you. Yeah. What's my remedy?
Okay. If you've each submitted an affidavit and one has rebutted the other, then
exactly.
Well, my understanding is that the last standing affidavit, unrebutted affidavit, wins, right?
It does. It does. But there and here's the caveat. There's always a but. So I don't know if you can see on the screen there the definition of an affidavit, Erica. Here's what's interesting.
Okay.
This is from Black's Law Dictionary, 2nd edition. So the founding fathers would have had access to at least this edition. And we know that James Madison had a Black's Law Dictionary. I don't know what version, but we know he had one because there's certain terms that are in the Constitution that would have only come from a law dictionary. So what's interesting here is the very last line says, an affidavit is a written declaration under oath, which we know, comma, made without notice to the adverse party. So my question is, why would there be in the definition from Black's Law Dictionary that it's made without notice to the adverse party? Does that make sense to you at all?
No, and I've never seen that either, but
yeah. So
like, how can you give how else can you give someone else a chance to rebut rebut what it is that you're making a claim to be true if you don't give them notice?
Ooh, I am so glad you asked. So let's move on. Let's move on to the next little tidbit, okay? Because we're going into definitions here and we're talking about a little bit of history.
This is funny, though. I had to put this up.
And the judge writes motion denied. Joe, that means the judge is a moron. They don't know what an affidavit is. That's exactly what that means. So let me see if I can. I don't know if that's a little small for you guys. I'm going to try and zoom in.
Yeah, zoom in if you can. Oh,
is that any better?
Much better.
Okay. All right. So due process of law. What does due process of law mean? We see this all the time in the federal constitution. We see it in your state constitutions. No person, no man, no woman can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without what, Erica?
Due process of law.
Okay, so what in the world is due process of law? What does that mean? Because I see it all over the place, and everybody seems to have their own definition of it, of what it is.
I have seen a lot of definitions.
Okay, so again, I'm a very simple-minded kind of man. I want to go keep it as simple for me as possible. What did our founders understand it to mean? Because if it was important to them to put it in the Constitution, then it was important for us to know it. So here's what it meant, again, according to the Black's Law Dictionary, 2nd edition. This is, in short, it's law in its regular course of administration through courts of justice. Okay, courts of justice. I'm going to keep going on. Due process of law in each particular case means such an exercise of the powers of the government as the settled maxims of law permit. Ooh, that's a good one. Settled maxims of law permit. And sanction, and under such safeguards for the protection of individual rights as those maxims prescribed for the class of cases to which the one in question belongs. So in short, due process of law is the administration of law through a court of justice, in one in which the protection of individual rights is protected at the highest level. That's what due process of law means. However, there's some other interesting things. It says, whatever difficulty may be experienced in giving to those terms a definition, which will embrace every permissible exertion of power affecting private rights, and such as is forbidden, and exclude such as is forbidden, there can be no doubt of their meaning when applied to judicial proceedings. They then mean a course of legal proceedings according to those rules and principles which have been established in our systems of jurisprudence for the enforcement and protection of what, Erica?
Private rights.
Private rights.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To give such proceedings any validity, there must be a tribunal competent by its constitution. Okay, now we see this all the time. Okay, we talk about courts of record and courts not of record. You've heard that, right?
Yes, a lot lately, especially
exactly.
Too. Learning the difference between legislative tribunals in statutory law and then courts of record and common law. So yeah, it's been really exciting and my mind's been being blown.
Okay, I'm about to blow your mind even more. So it's a good thing you're sitting down.
Okay.
It's a good thing you're sitting down and you haven't showered in 2 days, because I'm going to blow your mind. I'm just teasing. I don't know if you have or haven't. I'm just messing with you.
I totally haven't. I haven't showered. I haven't brushed my teeth. Like this is Erica all on natural in her very basic form, you guys. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so due process of law is just what I said it is. The court is established for the sole principle of the protection of private rights, and you cannot be deprived of those private rights unless the preponderance of evidence is overwhelming that you either committed a crime or you did some type of a civil tort to someone else, and they come in and they prove it before a jury of your peers. That's why the 7th Amendment is so important,
Right.
right? The
Right.
right to a trial by jury shall be preserved in controversies that exceed $25 or $20. I think it's $20.
And no one knows this. They'll just go into these, traffic courts or family courts or tax courts or whatever, and they don't have any idea of their rights to have those principles of due process, being
Mhm.
able to stand before your accuser and to know what crime you're being accused of, and to have a jury to weigh it
Mhm.
out for you.
So I told you I'm going to blow your mind, and this is why.
Okay.
There are only 2 courts that we operate in here.
What
Wow, that
was
was
that?
cool. What was that? Did you
I don't
do
know.
that, Justice?
I don't know
No?
if I liked it. Okay.
That's weird. So for those of you listening, some balloons just came flying across our screen. I don't know what happened there. When I held up my fingers, I did too. I don't know. That was weird. Oh.
Jeez.
I find out new things about technology all the time when I accidentally hit
is-
something or yeah.
Do it one more time.
All right, I'm gonna hold up the 2 fingers.
Oh,
There
okay.
it goes.
Oh, wow. So we got AI working on StreamYard now. That's what it is.
Lord
Oh
God.
dear.
All right.
Okay. StreamYard folks, you need to figure that out because I didn't want balloons going across the screen right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was getting to is there's only 2 courts that we operate in this country. Now you're going to hear family courts, tax courts, traffic courts. You've heard all of those things. But no, all of those courts fall under one type of court, and it's called a court of equity. Do you know what a court of equity is, Erica?
I haven't heard it called that, but it's like probably a court of common law, right?
Well, that's the other one. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we have 2 courts. We have the common law court.
Contract, maybe?
There you go. Now you're getting to
Contract?
it.
I don't know.
A court of equity is one where 2 people who are bound by oath or contract to each other bring the controversy in front of supposed to be a disinterested third party adjudicator of the facts, who then says, oh, party A has breached the contract, and as a result, there is a penal clause in the contract, and party A agreed to be held to these penal clauses if there was a breach of the contract. I'll give you an example. You're driving down the highway, minding your own business, singing to your little song here, and you got your head back and forth, and then blue lights flashing, come on in your rearview mirror. You pull off to the side of the road. We're not going to go into the whole details with that because we always do. Long story short, traffic cop gives you a ticket. You go into court and you say, hey, this guy summons me in here, and this is improper service. This is this, and this is that. And what happens? Judge says, whatever, I don't care. You're guilty anyway. Right? That's what happens. Have I said anything that hasn't happened?
All day.
All day, every day. Why is that?
Well, probably because you're waiving your right somehow to have due process of law for your situation. What?
When did you waive your rights to due process?
When you didn't request a trial by jury or subject matter jurisdiction, or
when you roll down the window.
I love where your head is at. Okay. Have you guys heard the term that if you carry a driver's license, that you have operated, that you have agreed to temporarily waive your rights in order to have certain protections and guarantees?
Right.
Have you guys heard of that?
Right, but it's like a quasi contract.
There
right?
you go. It is a quasi contract.
Right. And it's incognito. They don't tell you. It could be considered fraud, actually, because
so here's the problem. Okay. And when you guys listen to George Gordon, I mean, he's all over the whole driver's license thing. I don't carry a driver's license. I'm not required to carry a driver's license. None of us, for the record, is required to carry a driver's license.
Right.
The problem that we all do is that the the world we live in has become so ingrained that you must have these things that people just do them. They never even bother to ask by what authority. Now, believe you me, over the last 3 or 4 years, I ask everybody by what authority. By what authority? I was this close.
I'm just going to put a tattoo of it on my forehead.
You should just do that. I was this close the other day when I was going through the airport and they flagged my bag. And the guy said, "Is this your bag? I need to look inside." I was this close to saying, "Sure, go ahead and show me your warrant." But because I was in a hurry, because it was my job, I mean, this is what happens. We waive our rights for convenience.
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
Or fear.
Exactly. So now going back to everything I was just talking about. These courts of equity, all they are is a contract enforcement court. But no one, and I mean no one, not the prosecuting idiot attorney, not the cop who initiated the proceeding, and definitely not the defendant, not one of them says, "Show me proof of the contract." What contract did I sign where I knowingly and willingly waived my rights to travel the roads freely as I choose?
Right.
Okay.
And they will say your driver's license.
Exactly. Jeremy brings up this. Jeremy Cox says, "You by being there have complied." Sort of. Okay. Most states, now I don't know what it is here in Utah, it's been changed. Most states threaten you with jail time if you refuse to show up to an administrative court proceeding.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you're there does not mean, and I'm going to say this 300,000 times, it does not mean that they have jurisdiction over you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear George Gordon say that, well, if you don't do these things and the failure to object timely waives that right, sort of. They must have subject matter jurisdiction. What's the subject matter? The contract. Where is it? I have never heard yet, not one of these supposed gurus that teaches people how to do these things. I've not heard one of them yet go into a traffic court and say, "Judge, is this a court of equity or is this a court of common law?" "Oh, this is a court of equity." "Okay, great. May I please inspect the contract that this court is enforcing?" Okay. It's not there. And people are going to say, "Well, the driver's license is prima facie evidence of that." Is it? Show me again when I applied for that driver's license where I knowingly and willingly waived my rights in order to enjoy some type of a privilege that the grand almighty state gave to me.
Yeah.
You see the problem with all of this, guys?
Yeah. It's deceit.
Okay. So now this is going to bring, I promise I'm tying this all back in together.
No, I was going to say.
Let me ask you this. Justice, can I force you to contract with me?
No. Well, you can.
I can?
But then it wouldn't count because
you can scare me enough into it with.
Okay, but what if you
like criminal, but no.
Yeah. Okay, Joe, let's talk. I challenged jurisdiction in Syracuse, and the city was under Syracuse city jurisdiction because the attorney's a moron. They don't know what jurisdiction is. Okay? That guy's an idiot. I can beat that all day, every day. Anyway, so no one can force you to contract.
Right.
Okay? It's not a valid contract per the rules of the common law. You must have a signature from two sentient beings. You must have a meeting of the minds.
Right.
Okay, Erica wants this. I want this. How do we come together? Let's come together. There must be consideration. Is she providing a service to me that I'm paying for, or vice versa? What's involved? I cannot force you to contract. Okay.
Right. So when I was saying, well, you can force me is like, either like the mob, you put a gun to my head, or you can do it by deceit. You can do it by trickery. So if we take the license or whatever it is, and in the fine print, which is so sneaky and fraudulent, they put these things in there that they wind up trying to catch you at later. That was done without your knowledge.
So that's what they're doing is they're operating under the presumption that there's a contractual relationship between yourself and the state wherein you agreed to waive your criminal, your waive your rights to proper due process of law in lieu of paying fines and penalties and fees to the state because you decided to violate those infractions.
Which just
Czar, you're
blows my
absolutely
mind,
right. They
James.
also threaten you with jail. So let's talk about some other things. We talked about traffic courts. What about family court? What's the contract for a family court?
Okay, so
Can
I
real
have
quick,
heard.
Erica, real quick, can I just tell you what the contract for family court is that the state's
Oh yeah,
operating under? Marriage license.
that's what I was gonna say. I've been told that it was the marriage license because it creates a third-party contract with the state. So, but
What business is it what business is it of the state of who I marry and who I don't marry? What benefit do I gain by bringing the state into my personal life?
Nothing.
Go ahead, guys. I'll wait.
Nothing. No benefit at all. We just have been brainwashed into going through these motions. That's sadly.
We were just all told this, right? Oh, you want to get married? You have to get a marriage license.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, you want to drive a car? You need to get a driver's license. Oh, you want to build a home? You need to get a building permit.
Oh, you want to have a baby? Then you have to register it with the state and give it a number and fill out some paperwork while you're there.
Fill out some paperwork so we can track every little move.
This is interesting.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, and this is what I'm saying, a lot of people are catching on to this criminality, and more states are changing their statutory procedures and laws that if you don't show up, they can't issue a warrant. They can issue a bench warrant that says, hey, you need to show up for this, but they can't arrest you. They actually are working on legislation right now, I believe, here in Utah, because it's their legislative session right now, that they're not going to allow officers to arrest people if there's an open bench warrant for their arrest.
Oh, goodness. That's great.
They're just going to say, hey, you've got a bench warrant. You need to go get it taken care of.
Let me ask, Asen, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. California, my sister lives there as well. They're big on the cameras, the camera tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about camera tickets or a mixture of both or whatever? I'm just curious because
probably both. So,
I mean,
but let me go back. Let me go back and tie this into the topic of the show. Affidavits, are they useful anymore? Remember how I said I can't force you into a contract. So if I send you an affidavit and I swear you've harmed me and I point out all the things that are harmed and you decide not to rebut it, can I now take that affidavit and get a judgment against you? If I can't force you to contract, can I bypass your rights to due process and get a judgment against you, depriving you of either life, liberty, or property?
I don't see
those are reserved for the people. And that's what I'm so confused because, like, is it all of government supposed to be created to protect the individual rights of the people?
Yes.
Supposed to be.
Yes.
I mean, read
I'm
the Declaration
so sorry
of
I ask all
Independence.
these foundational questions all the time, but like they're supposed
Read-
to not be allowed to touch a certain part of our lives. They're reserved rights for the people.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, this I have to put this up. This is funny. So it's Jason L. It's Pig Latin. Ace and J. Clever. I love that. That's clever. So to answer the question, it's no, you can't. I can't just send an affidavit out because, again, what if that affidavit is full of complete and utter garbage, but you still went down and got a notary to sign it, and they signed it, so it's notarized.
But it doesn't mean that sending an affidavit to an opposing party will not stop them in their tracks because they don't want the following, which could be a lawsuit. And that's usually the issue of guilt because they know they've done wrong and they don't want to get into it. So
see, this is where I think we've all gotten lost. I mean, when we first started what we're doing, when Justice and I first hooked up together and started doing this crazy experiment that we call a podcast or whatever this clown show is that we do. I don't know what we're calling this these days, but I know we've got dozens of followers, and it's awesome. Thank you, all of our dozens of followers. I love to make that joke. But so when we first started this, we were on the affidavits. What is an affidavit? What's it for? What do we use them for? They are useful. So the answer to the question is yes, they are useful. They're even more powerful in a court setting, and I'll explain here in a minute, because there was a question in the chat that I wanted to get to. So the answer to the question is yes, they're useful. And I'll give you a very good example. During the COVID madness, I was having all sorts of problems with some power tripping idiot at a recreation center. I was trying to coach my daughter's basketball team. This guy was jumping down my throat about covering my nose and my mouth with a piece of fabric. Okay. I wrote up a very strongly worded affidavit, had it signed, and I had it mailed to the guy. Not even 2 hours later, I get a phone call from a friend of mine who got a phone call from a county attorney who said, are you suing us? And I said, no, I didn't sue anybody. And the guy's like, well, he got this legal document and he's worried about this. And I said, no, I just want the guy to stop. Well, guess what? He stopped.
Right.
Ever since then, he's treated me up with nothing but respect.
That it's
which
the
I
way of
appreciate.
saying, if you don't stop, I'll sue you.
That's basically what it was. And I just said, you're violating my rights, and I'm telling you to stop.
And it's on record.
We're freaking adults, people.
Right.
If we
And it's in the written word. Yeah.
It's on record.
Exactly. If we have a problem with someone else, why in the world can we not just tell them? Heck, you can even just send a freaking text message if you don't want to talk to them. Just say, dude, you're violating my rights.
That wasn't happening then, though, James. That's why you sent the affidavit.
That's correct.
The world had gone mad, and it was a forced, it was forced craziness upon the people by the oligarchs that run the world to create this nonsense. So people weren't thinking clearly. The smoke is cleared, we're settled down, and we are thinking that, wait a minute, we're all God's children, and we should just deal man to man. Again, go back to the basics. And when the basics don't work, you take it the next step, which is an affidavit or a nice letter in the mailbox, whatever.
So here's the power, the true power of affidavits, and why you have that settled legal maxim that an unrebutted affidavit stands as gospel truth. Outside of court, an unrebutted affidavit is nothing more than an unrebutted affidavit. It hasn't been ruled upon. However, when you present a proper pleading before a court of jurisdiction, like we just read, according to due process of law, we're affording our adversary their due process rights, just like we're guaranteed our due process rights. When we support our accusations and allegations with either a jurat, which is just another fancy word of an affidavit, or we send in an affidavit in support of, now everything in that document must be rebutted word for word by the people you're being accused. So what happens? I have Joe Spencer's question back up on the screen, because this is what happens in 99.999999997% of the cases, where you submit a complaint supported by an affidavit. You're swearing under the penalty of perjury everything that you wrote is true. And what happens? Some pompous attorney, pettifogger shyster attorney, as George Gordon likes to call him, and others, they just write some words on a piece of paper and they send it back.
Wait, was it under the penalty of perjury?
No.
Oh, well then it doesn't count. Right?
It doesn't. But what do these stupid judges do? And I say stupid because 99.999996% of them are all stupid.
Or corrupt.
Or corrupt. They're all members of the same association, generally speaking, the Bar Association. So, Joe, when you challenge jurisdiction in Syracuse City, chances are, even if you didn't do it with an affidavit, it doesn't matter. You, the man, challenged jurisdiction, and the attorney said it was under Syracuse City jurisdiction. Guess what? The attorney, anything the attorney says, objection, hearsay. Objection, hearsay. Objection, hearsay. I object. Everything this attorney says is hearsay. The attorney has no personal knowledge of anything. Maybe they might know what they had for breakfast that morning. They might have personal knowledge of that. But as far as my case is concerned, they have no personal knowledge whatsoever. Okay? So you must object. You must object. You must object. You have to set the record, because here's what's going to happen. You probably won't get the ruling you want at the trial court. Matter of fact, it's almost guaranteed you won't. Like I am, we had some people were asking for an update on my case. I'm about 100% positive. Well, 99.9998% positive the judge is going to dismiss my case. That's where I'm at. Because I don't think the judges at the trial court are far enough removed from the association that controls them. I don't think they are. I still think they're beholden to something. And again, there's a lot of politics involved in a lot of these things. So I'm playing the end game. I have created a major federal question. That's something that George Gordon says you must be willing to do. If you're not willing to create a major federal question and have that federal question be decided upon by the United States Supreme Court, then you're not doing your job. And there's no way you're going to win. Because are you willing to appeal this all the way to the Supreme Court? Because I am. My personal property rights are at stake here. And I'm tired of giving away money. I'm tired of you people taking my money under the threat of taking my property without my due process rights.
That was something really encouraging that Big Sib was telling me today. I talked to him and he was like, even if only 10% of our cases are getting to the Supreme Court, imagine if there's hundreds of us, then
Exactly.
At least there are people getting into the courts, because, there's the idea that if we can nip this in the bud before it goes to court, that is by far the best way to resolve everything. That's how I resolved my issue with the contract fiasco that I went through. It was between two humans discussing, honor and the letter of the law in the contract. And that's what we should do with our government officials too. Like, by what authority are you doing this? And please provide it under penalty of perjury to tell me what it is that you're saying you have the authority to do to violate my rights in this situation. Ultimately, that'd be perfect. But you're saying once you're in the court systems, be willing to take it to the Supreme Court where you can actually get a ruling that will be worth a darn. And if there's many of us, then I don't know. I kind of was understanding, because I said there's something wrong with our court systems, and he's like, that's why we need to take them back. They were created to give the people justice. And they're not doing that, but that's why we have to take them back, is what he was saying.
It's the people's house. Okay. Right. Sometimes you'll hear, the capital, the United States Capitol, or the capital of whatever state you live in is the people's house. And I would contend, no, that's not the case. I would say that your local courthouse is the people's house. So VP says, why don't we use affidavits for our property tax cases? VP, I can't answer for you, but I did. And every single document that I filed with the court where I was bringing facts or alleging facts, I backed it up with an affidavit. So now what has to happen is they must be rebutted by an affidavit. Is my trial judge going to recognize that and rule accordingly? It's highly unlikely.
What if you instruct him? What if you?
It's because, again, we have to understand. We have to look at these things from the outside, looking in. We're bringing back the foundational principles our nation was founded on. These people have been operating in administrative procedures and rules for the last 50, 60 years. I mean, some of these judges in these lower courts, they're not very old, but all they know is what their law school teacher taught them, whatever law firm they worked for, whoever their mentor was taught them. They don't know and understand. I'm willing to bet that if you went up to a well-known practicing lawyer and said, hey, can you name 2 or 3 legal maxims for me? I'm willing to bet that they would be hard pressed to name one.
Right. Same thing in every industry. Nurses and doctors don't know how the body actually works. Police officers don't know the law. CPAs don't know what the income tax is and who it's for. They don't have a clue. Yeah,
So
everyone's just doing what they were taught by someone else to do. That's why it's up to the
exactly.
people to instruct our public officials on
Correct.
what the law is, right?
Exactly. So VP, if they don't rebut, isn't that an admission of your facts? Well, yeah. Because there's two things, right? We have and we know the maxim of law, an unrebutted affidavit stands as gospel truth. We know that, but only in a court proceeding, one where the other side is given an opportunity to cross-examine. That's what this is, to cross-examine the facts controverted. Say, well, I contend that fact is not true. Well, I contend that fact is not true. Now we have two parties at odds with each other. Let's bring in a jury of our peers and put the information out there and let them decide what the facts are. Okay? But there's also every single court rule, all of the rules of procedure that you guys see, every single one of those rules of procedure is founded in a due process principle, due process of law principle. So I know the federal rules really well. It's Rule 8, where it states that allegations that are not specifically denied are deemed admitted. So if I send you a complaint and I've got 33 things on there and you only deny 25 of them, well, all the others are admitted for purposes of the proceeding. That goes to the heart. So affidavits, they are admissible as evidence in court, but there's always a big but. And I'm not talking about the fat lady at the opera. There's always a big but. The big but is you must be the affiant.
Right.
Whoever authored the affidavit must be able to come in and be cross-examined. Again, we're giving both sides their due process rights. That is what has been missing here. So going back to that debate, that debacle that happened on our channel, guys, our entire channel has changed. The dynamic has changed. It's gotten way worse than what I've ever wanted it to be. I am not in the business of being a debate moderator or a speech moderator. That's not who I am, and I don't want to do it. I know Justice doesn't want to do it. I know Erica doesn't want to do it.
Well, it's simmered down because
it's just quit calling each other names. Quit saying I'm right, you're wrong. I'm big, you're dumb. My dad will come beat up your dad. I'm tired of that stuff. Okay? Freaking grow up.
Right? We're all on the same team. We all want justice, right?
Okay, I'm pulling the Bob Newhart psychiatrist thing. Well, how do you feel about that? I don't know. We'll just stop it. Stop it.
Sometimes what works for one does not work for another, and vice versa.
Exactly.
There are some things that are set in stone, but there are some things that are malleable.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. I think those gentlemen that had that debate, I really feel like at the core, they were talking about the same thing, but they were so stuck in their arguments that they couldn't see past the tip of their nose to go, oh, you know what? I think he's got a point. And what he's trying to say is this, which I agree with. We just disagree about this. Instead of finding that common ground. And again, I'm not pointing fingers, and I think highly of both of those individuals. I know one very well. I don't know the other one at all. Never spoken to him. I've heard about stuff. I've listened to some of his things. I don't think he's teaching bad principles. I just think to each their own. You guys, God gave you a brain, I think. Use it.
Well, that's
all right.
With some individuals, James.
I know. I mean, that's questionable. I know some people thought, when God was handing out brains, you thought he said trains. And nope, I'm good. I don't want to train. That's what my grandpa used to tell me. So use your own logic, use your own common sense, use your own discernment for what you believe is truth. Exactly. Use all of the tools in the toolbox. Thank you, Leslie. Egos only do any. Again, you guys have heard this said, that Abraham Lincoln stated that this nation is too strong to fall to an outside force from an outside invasion. Never mind the invasion that's going on right now. We're going to talk about that later. We are too strong to fall to an outside invasion. So if this nation falls, it's because we are bickering amongst each other and we tear ourselves down.
United we stand, divided we fall.
I just think to go back to the title of the show, affidavits, are they useful? Absolutely. If you don't want to go to court, I know a lot of people don't want to. I love it. I think it's fun. But some people don't. If you don't want to do that, but you want to take a shot at getting remedies, send them an affidavit. They might ignore you. Okay, so if they ignore you, now what? Now how do you get remedy? Now what do you do? Is it still to the point? I mean, it has to get to the point where the pain is too strong for you to not do anything. If it's just a minor nuisance, you'll deal with it.
So this is, Zara had put this up, and this is how we started the show out. It's really just a warning, and that's exactly what it is.
It's a shot across the bow.
And
like you've heard that term, right?
Case, guy completely backpedaled and stepped out.
Yeah.
That's all he needed. So it's very valuable.
So again, that's why I say, I mean, how many times do attorneys, and I keep hating to use you know how much I love attorneys. How many times do attorneys send cease and desist letters? All the time. Do they have any legal teeth whatsoever? None whatsoever. If I get a cease and desist letter from an attorney, am I required to do what they're asking me to do? Heavens no. I can take that paper and I can use it as toilet paper. I mean, it's going to hurt like the dickens because that paper's not soft, but hey, that's what I want to do, then that's what you can do.
But it's a warning.
Stating the law.
It's a warning.
The actual law that applies to men and women in this regard. And then with our public officials, doesn't matter who's in the position. There's only one job description, right?
Yeah.
And so we can use our knowledge of the law to instruct them because they probably really don't know.
They don't.
They really don't.
You guys, like I said, it's our legislative session going on right now here in Utah. If I was to go down to our state house or our state senate, and I was to ask anybody in the hall, hey, can you tell me what the Seventh Amendment covers, what the Eighth Amendment covers of the federal Constitution? What about what does the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights of the Utah Constitution say? I would get deer in the headlights. These guys don't know this stuff. They don't know this stuff at all. So I had this up on the screen here from Jar, the proprietor. All three of you were awesome. Zara, tell me something I don't know, please.
Stop.
That's why I took it down, because I thought your head would be.
She knew where I was going with this. No, I'm just teasing. I am also the most humble person you'll ever meet.
You are.
No, but this the second part is like this subject is the most important in this time, and it's the truth. And I just wanted to see, this right here from Joe. We can learn a lot when we start looking through someone else's eyes. And that's figuratively, people, not literally, okay? We're not that grotesque on this show.
Right.
Take a step back. Is what this guy or woman, is what they're saying, does it have any validity? Okay, I can see that. Yeah. No, Zara, I won't do that.
Yeah, there's something to be learned from everything, confrontations and heated discussions, and there's always something to learn, and, there's always something to learn. Keep an open mind and don't let the worldly affairs, get us hair triggered, friends. Yeah. Remember, we all want the same thing at the end of the day. We want to be loved on. We want to love on one another and our families and be left alone in peace.
I like, there's not a lot of things that I would say looking back in the history of the Russian nation that I think makes a lot of sense. But there is one thing that I think makes a lot of sense. And for them, it's, we trust people, but we verify. Trust, but verify. So when you're listening, even me, if I'm telling you something, you can trust me, but darn it, verify what I'm saying. Don't take what I'm telling you just because I have a microphone and we have a platform. Don't take what I'm telling you as the gospel truth, because it might not be. I don't know. I've been wrong before. I mean, I know that's not easy for me to admit, but I've been married for 20 years. So I've been wrong for about 20-something years of my life or more.
But James, I think that's what makes the affidavit process even that more powerful, because we're showing them it's not just because we're saying it, it's because this is what the law says. So I'm pointing it out to you. There is an authority, and
it's grounded in truth and in principle.
Grounded in truth. So we can't say, well, we don't know if we're right or not. we're showing you what's right. Now we're expecting you as our servants to do what you're responsible to do. That's why the written word, to show them, because they have to verify, like, is this really true? Am I not really allowed to do this with my job?
So,
Oh,
so here's what's interesting, you guys, is when you read your state's constitutions, when you read the federal constitution, one of the rights that is protected under the First Amendment is your right to petition your government for a redress of grievances. So that right takes many different forms. One of those petitions is in a court of justice. One of those petitions can be to your state legislature. One of those petitions could be to your state Senate chambers. One of them could be to your state governor, all of whom are public servants and who work for you. What if you need to have some documents recorded at the county regarding your property because you don't want somebody to come trying to infringe on your property rights, and that property county recorder doesn't want to do their job? Well, guess what? Stand your ground. Hey, last time I checked, you're a public servant. And whereas all political power is inherent in we the people, I'm asking you to do something to protect my individual private rights. You don't get to tell me no.
you know what's so beautiful about this whole thing is that in order for us to hold someone else accountable for what they're supposed to do, we have to know it. Like, that's what we've all, like, in the last couple of years, been driven to finding out what the truth is. And, like, same thing in marriages. For instance, I can't say to Brad, like you're doing this because it's wrong. But if I have an authority that says, so that's not me saying it, that says, look, we can both look at this, and this is what it says, how we're supposed to behave toward one another, that's a totally different message. But in order to know to do that, you have to learn it yourself, and it has to be part of who you are. And bullies back down real fast when you know something and they don't.
Well, and so to your point there, right, where you said when you're speaking to your spouse and it comes from a position of authority, I would just be caution all of you, that position of authority is not your in-laws, okay? Whether it's your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, it is not that authority, okay? I just want to be very clear about that. So, all right, you guys, we're coming up on just a little more than an hour here. I know, thank you for those of you who have joined us here on our live show. This is a late night show. We're trying to find a time that works. And for a long time, I was doing the show on Fridays. I got busy with a new job. Fridays are tough. If there's a time during the week that works better for everybody, drop us a line in the Telegram chat, or even here in the comment on our YouTube channel or wherever you're finding us. Let us know what works for you guys, because I want to be able to get as much information out to you as possible. So I do want to give a quick update on my case, because I don't have an update, but I want to give you one. So the last document that I filed, which I posted in the Telegram chat group, was a motion to expedite the proceedings. The opposing side didn't oppose that motion, which is shocking to me. But we're now going on almost 4 weeks since that, and I still can't get the court to move. My biggest frustration with these trial courts, listen, I can deal with a bad ruling. I can deal with that. I can point out all the flaws, and I can appeal it up to the next level. My biggest frustration is the waiting game. I got no sense of time at all from any of these trial judges as to when they're going to make a ruling.
Well, because
very, very frustrating.
You've put them in a really unique position, because they know you're going to challenge it in the appellate courts. Like, you know, you're building your case to be able to take it to the next guy to be like, hey, they didn't do their job very well. Check this out. But they also don't want to rule in your favor, because then the whole house of cards crumbles. So like, that's like with Brandon's case, what are they going on, a year that it's been in summary judgment? Like, status, that's crazy. That's like, talk about justice delayed being justice denied.
Exactly.
How do you then move that? How do we get our courts back to start ruling?
Well, so, there's a comment here in the chat that the courts are more useless than affidavits, and I don't know that I would agree with that, because when I'm looking at the rulings that are coming from the United States Supreme Court, that are coming from our appellate courts, there are judges at those levels who are constitutionally principled judges. They're not making rulings because somebody's giving them money or they're being pressured to rule one way or another. They're making rulings because it's the right thing to do. So that's why I say is I fully expect I'm not going to get the remedy that I want at the lower court. I get that. And as long as you know and understand that going into it, you're not going to be disappointed when things don't go your way. So, guys, again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna cut us off here. I've got it's getting late here. Got to get my kiddos to bed for school. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you for jumping on very late. I know it's after 10 o'clock for you. And she's like, I'm a pregnant mama and I want to go to sleep. So,
and I just found out about the show like 30 minutes before it happened.
Yep,
you know,
just like, hey.
Just trying to keep you on your toes, girl.
That's right.
As if I'd go anywhere else but on my toes every day.
So with that, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign us off. And until hopefully next week or whenever we get another show out, we'll let you guys know. Thanks, everybody. Take care, everyone. God bless you all.
Good night.
Bye.